Hi, my name is Adrian Taffinder. I'm the CEO of the Mind Expansion Academy. Most people know me as the subconscious surgeon, and I'm here today to talk to you about an amazing and mind-blowingly beautiful crystal which the universe bestowed upon me and has blessed me with now owning the last available Siberian blue that there is, the original stuff. And this is where you've got to be careful out there, because there's a lot of copies. There's a lot of people that have attempted to emulate and copy the original Siberian blue. And when I talk about the original Siberian blue, it was a good friend of mine called Stefan Schwartz. Such an amazing gentleman, studied remote viewing, done 23,000 scientific experiments, found ancient monuments in Egypt, Alexandra's Palace, Cleopatra's Needle, the Lost Lighthouse of Pharos, with remote viewers, his work with the military, and his work with governments all over the world. And it was when he was working with the Soviet Union over 30 years ago, it was on this mission which took him to the deepest depths of Siberia, to a secret city, which was a city that didn't appear on the map. It only had a number, and it was basically for military purposes. So it didn't technically exist. And he was working there, and he was talking to some of the locals, some of the people that were there, and he was talking about shamanism. And he's written several books on shamanism. He's researched it from different parts of the world. I mean, shamanism actually originated in Siberia. And while he was talking, they were like, "You know a lot about shamanism, and would you like to meet some of our local shaman? We've got some of the most powerful shaman in the world here." And he was like, "Absolutely, I would absolutely love to." So he was taken to meet these Siberian shaman, and when he met them, you know, they just look like normal people. You know, they don't always be dressed with feathers and garlands and things like that. You know, quite often they live a normal life when they're not doing shamanic rituals. And while they were talking to them, you know, they kind of gathered he knew a lot about shamanism, and one of them reached into his medicine bag, it was a reindeer scrotum, and picked out this little broken shard of blue crystal. And it was at that point Stefan Schwartz was mesmerized by it. It was like, you know, he's never seen anything like it. It was so clear, so vibrant, such a striking blue. And you know, he was asking, where did they get it from? Could he get some? And it was at that point they'd become rather secretive and hid it away and changed the subject. And he left there not knowing anything about it. Now, Stefan set up the 104th foreigner, owned company in the USSR. Started off in Moscow, and he, sold feminine products and ballpoint pens. The first person to bring them into the Soviet Union. And that took him to the Soviet Union, to Russia, about 4 or 5 months of the year. And every time he went, he would ask people, when I was in Siberia, I saw this blue crystal, does anybody know about it? Nothing. Even when people looked suspicious, nobody said anything. It was very secretive, very hush-hush. And he spent 2 years attempting to find it. And it was just by a chance visit. He was in London, he phoned his business partner, and his business partner said, "Look, is it possible you can make it over here as soon as possible? We've got a meeting lined up." And he was like, "I'll go to the airport, let me find out." Got to the airport, booked a flight, flew in, didn't tell anybody he'd got a flight. Landed in Moscow. And when he went to his normal hotel, that was booked up, so he had to go to a hotel around the corner. Got to the hotel, booked, paid, went to his room, and when he got to his room, the phone was ringing. And of course, back then, there was no phone books, each phone had its own number, there was no exchanges, so to ring that number, you had to know the number. So he just assumed it wasn't for him, and picked up the phone to say, "You've got the wrong number," and that's when he heard this Russian voice go, "Is that Mr. Schwartz?" And it was at that moment that he realised that this was KGB. There was just no other way. So he was like, "Yes." And he says, "Are you still interested in the blue?" was like, what, the blue stone? And he was like, yes. And he was like, I'm absolutely, yeah, I am still interested in it, yes. Why? And he says, well, you will meet me at the place of execution at 8 AM tomorrow. Well, it sounds very ominous, but the place of execution was a place in, you know, Red Square, this kind of round area where they used to do executions. And he went there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he was met by this KGB colonel in full regalia, badges, everything like that. Walked up to him, hello, Mr. Schwartz, you can come with me. And they escorted him to this, you know, military limousine, got in, pulled the curtains, and started driving. Now, they'd been driving half an hour in silence when he was like, hang on a minute, I haven't got a visa. Back then you needed a visa to go out of the city. And he didn't have one. And he was like, I've got a problem, I can't leave the city. And he was like, don't worry, you're with us. So, another 2.5 hours later, that's nearly 3 hours of driving into the deep countryside just outside Moscow in Russia during the Soviet Union. He arrived at this dairy farm, and he pulls up to the dairy farm and he's kind of very puzzled and perplexed, and there's guards with guns at the gate, and they pull in and they get out and they walk into this complex, and inside is this absolutely pristine laboratory. And the guy starts giving him a full guided tour. So, right, this is our secret military laboratory where we regrow crystals to the highest purity. What we do is we get quartz from the French mountains, we grind it into powder, we dissolve it in acid, we then purify it, we add cobalt, which is the blue, and we then heat the liquid up to 2,500 degrees to simulate a pocket of volcanic acid. We, in these 36-foot high titanium autoclaves, and then we put them under high pressure and high temperature, and we neutralize the acid, and in 2 months, one of these things grow. Now, what you'll see is if we look kind of down the middle there, you might be able to see it if I use this camera. There we go. It's like a clear stripe. Yeah. So that clear stripe down the middle is what we call the beryllium seed crystal. Now, what happens is you can't really see, but there's sort of like wires that come out of the top, which are wired into that beryllium seed crystal. That thin, it's about 4 mil thick beryllium seed crystal. And that gets lowered into the liquid, right? And then they close it, bolt it down, heat it up, and this becomes the seed crystal, the anode, what the crystal grows from. So it actually grows from the outside, from the middle towards the outside. That is the natural, you can hear me ring against it, that's the natural texture of the outside of the crystal. And then these are the grain, which is the side of the crystal, which you can see the grain. Yeah. So these are just exactly raw, exactly how they came out of the titanium autoclave 30 years ago. And cutting a long story short, you can see the full interview with Stefan that I did on my YouTube channel. But basically, cut a long story short, he did a deal with them, and he bought a ton of it, 1,000 kilos, and brought it back to the US. Now, he partnered with a high-end Italian jewellery manufacturer, made some really beautiful and amazing pieces of jewellery, and sold them on QVC, which was a TV shopping channel. Now, this was all going incredibly well for him, and he did incredibly well indeed, you know, from the sales. But the challenge is that the Soviet Union collapsed, and within a few months of the Soviet Union collapsing, all the labs got closed down, the supply got cut off. And because QVC deal in volume, and if you can't guarantee the supply, they cut the contract. At the time of cutting the contract, he had about 200 or 300 kilos left. And they are pretty much, apart from a few that is sold here and there, 240 kilos of them have been sat in storage for the last 30 years, and now I have the absolute blessed opportunity to own the entire stock, and I'm going to be turning it into amazing and magical spiritual tools and jewellery. So when I talk about spiritual tools, it will be looking at the ways that the shaman actually used it back then. Yeah, how did they use it as a spiritual tool? What was its benefits? How do we tap into that power? Yeah, so we're going to be doing a group, which we'll be doing regular meditations. We'll have recorded online meditations. We'll do lives. We'll do group discussions. You know, and all that kind of stuff as well. We have some very specialist groups that we're going to be using skulls. Skulls were another crystal technology which has been steeped in mysticism for, you know, hundreds and maybe thousands of years. What was the film? Indiana Jones, wasn't it? You know, talked about the crystal skulls. And crystal skulls were used for tapping into people's psychic abilities, particularly between people who hold the skulls. So if you were holding the skull and you did a particular ritual with it, you could create a shared consciousness with the other party and tap into their skills and knowledge, and so forth. A little bit like the Netflix documentary Netflix show Sense8. I say documentary because I'm a very sensitive empath, and I've actually even dictated what somebody else was reading several thousand miles away, and actually part of what I do in subconscious surgery is, in essence, sense and feel without people really telling me what the problem is, what is the problem inside them, articulate it in words and help them process it out. So, you know, for me, I'm a healer. I want to heal other people. So the amplifying our healing gifts is something that very interested me, you know, and I work with a lot of healers. I'm going to be developing a network of healers. So if I can get some powerful healers and increase their power of being able to heal others, then I'm completing my mission, my purpose, the reason why I incarnated into this body and why I'm here today. So I would like to go through some of the pieces of jewellery that I have and talk about them. Talk about what I've been doing to charge the crystals and the journey so far in kind of developing this program. So stay tuned. There's going to be lots more videos talking about all the different little items. So please follow, like, subscribe, join, do all that kind of stuff that we do on YouTube. If you're really interested in spiritual tools, if you're interested in mind-blowing ultra rare crystals and the powers that we can evoke from them, and also the incredibly beautiful pieces of jewellery we can create.